Welcome to Comptroller's Corner. I'm your host, Pat Curry, joined as always by Buffalo Comptroller Mark Schroeder. Topping today's broadcast, the Common Council has unanimously passed a local law drafted by Comptroller Schroeder that would require the 3 division heads in Comptroller Schroeder's department be certified public accountants. Now, Mark, this local law actually changes the city charter and makes sure that you have 3 qualified certified public accountants in these division head roles. And they're very important roles. One is a city accountant, which I would think you would want a CPA in is that job.
Sure.
Also the city auditor, and you would also want the auditing skill to be done by a CPA. And also the investment and debt officer. Now these 3 positions are all held by CPAs now. Now the city accountant is Bill Ferguson, and the city auditor is Kevin Kaufman, and Greg Szymanski is the investment and debt officer. And you found that having those qualified individuals in those leadership positions has really helped your department and the city.
Yeah. So first of all, I think the constituents, the citizens of Buffalo, I've been the comptroller now, Patrick, for 5.5 years, so I think they have a sense of what I'm trying to do in terms of best practices, and that I am the fiscal officer of the city of Buffalo. So I want to make sure that we protect the citizens' money each and every day. So quite frankly, and in all due respect to changing the charter and to the unanimous vote by the council, I've been doing what this law suggests. I've been doing it without having to do it. So we've been doing this for the last 5.5 years. So as you know, you've heard me say this before, when I became the comptroller 5.5 years ago, I asked a very basic question: how many employees do I have here in audit and control? They gave me the answer. I then asked the next logical question: how many certified public accountants do I have up here watching the taxpayers' money? And they gave me that answer: one certified public accountant 5.5 years ago. Now we have 10 certified public accountants, and each division I'm responsible for, as you mentioned, now has a certified public accountant. So accounting, which those folks are responsible for doing the comprehensive financial review each and every year. And then the audit department, which we've done over 55 audits of city departments and also city entities over the last 5.5 years. That division is headed up by a certified public accountant. And just recently, I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about us being in the marketplace, trying to do some bond opportunities for the infrastructure of Buffalo, and that department, debt management officer, is also a certified public accountant. So I can tell you I sleep well at night because I know that we've brought in the right credentialed people to watch over the citizens' money. Not
only has their expertise added to the expertise of your department, but it's also paid dividends as far as the results that they get. Now, before you brought in the current city auditor, the city auditor was an attorney. He didn't really have auditing experience, and the new city auditor came in. He instituted standards that were provided by the International Auditors Institute, and that has led to audits that have record money coming back to the city. For instance, he shut down a corrupt vendor in the Erie Basin Marina that had been shortchanging taxpayers, ripping off taxpayers by not paying the rent. Upwards, and the city was awarded $200,000 plus the floating docks as a result of that arbitration. He was part of the audit team that brought in $1 million refund from National Grid. And as far as some of the audits that he's done, he has done very comprehensive audits on overtime in the police and fire department. And it's showing that not only is this saving us money, but it's making sure that the best practices are done. In fact, he just got through a meeting with the clerk's office, and he's working with the clerk's office to improve their internal controls to prevent any fraud or mismanagement as far as purchasing licenses. And to talk about the city accountant, the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, that was issued, it seems to be issued earlier and earlier every year that Bill Ferguson has been involved. And this past year was the soonest it's been issued in all of recent memory. And we'll talk a little bit about what Greg Szymanski's done in the investment and debt division a little bit later. But it's really making a huge difference for taxpayers having these qualified individuals with these credentials in these positions.
I think the citizens of Buffalo understand that I have never been a career politician. I was in the private sector for over 25 years. One of the most important processes when you're in the private sector is the interview process. You have to make sure that when you're interviewing the right person. And then you have to make it clear to the person who's interviewing what the job scope is, what the objectives are, what the expectation is of the boss. Once you make that clear, then you listen to what the candidate has to say. And so I will tell you, Patrick, being involved in the private sector for 25 years, I have hired hundreds of people. And I know how to use these big ears to my advantage, to listen to what people are saying. And I can tell you, over the last 5.5 years, I have hired the right people who have the proper credentials to do the people's work. And so in the city auditor, you talked about all the attributes and all of the great things that Kevin Kaufman has done. In addition, because he's a certified public accountant, he's involved in some mentoring programs across the country where he goes to certain municipalities and then certain people come to us and they can help us look at things differently, a different set of eyes. And so he has brought that. If we didn't have a certified public accountant, I would have never known about the association that you talked about and about some of these opportunities to look at things in a different way. But Bill Ferguson, very, very successful in the private sector as a certified public accountant, and we brought him in. He was the first hire I made, from the outside, and he has been absolutely outstanding. Not only is he credentialed as a certified public accountant, but he and his family love Buffalo. They love to be a part of what's happening in the Comptroller's office and beyond the Comptroller's office. These are the type of people that we need to hire to bring in who are going to do fine work each and every day for all the right reasons.
Another very important reason that you drafted this legislation is that it helps the rank and file employees underneath these positions, and I'll explain how this occurs. Now, in order to get your certified public accountant certificate, you need to work under CPA. You need to work underneath, directly supervised by someone who already is a certified public accountant. So this gives an opportunity to all 40 of your employees in audit control. Now that all 3 division heads are CPAs, it gives them an opportunity for them to get their CPA, and it wouldn't be possible for them to get their CPA if they weren't working under a CPA. So not only are your employees being led by these qualified, credentialed professionals, but they themselves now, just by working for them, have the opportunity to become qualified, credentialed employees themselves, and they can actually, by virtue of working for these employees, working for these CPAs, they can become CPAs, and thus they can fill these positions when they advance and when their new CPAs needed in these positions.
So that was perfectly said, and that is absolutely the case. But I want to make it clear, and I don't want to be judgmental, and I'm not trying to throw any prior controller under the bus. But let me just tell you, 5.5 years ago when I got to audit and control, that did not happen. There was not one division head who was a CPA. So all of the things you just talked about was impossible to happen. And so you're exactly right. The culture that we've been able to institute in the audit and control is some of the younger employees coming up. they've had some of the credentials, accounting, and some finance courses in college, but now they really have an opportunity if they want to advance, if they want to get a master's degree, or if they want to study and sit for the Certified Public Accountant's license. This is the opportunity for them, and we've seen it happen. There's a young man in debt management, Michael Schroeder, and he has become a certified public accountant over the last year or so, and one of the reasons why is what you described. His boss, the one who runs the division, Greg Szymanski, he's a certified public accountant. In years past, what we would have to do is take that person who wants to sit and we'd have to put them somewhere else. And 5.5 years ago, there was nowhere to put them. So we've come a long way, and now what we've done is we have assured that in the future, that when the next comptroller gets elected in Buffalo, the comptroller has to, by charter, put in certified public accountants in these 3 divisions or change the charter. Try to explain that to the citizens, that you want to lessen the credentials of the people watching the taxpayers' money. Try explaining that someday.
Yes, and what you found is that in the charter, there was, there said they could be a CPA or have this certain level of experience. And when you came in, it seems to me that if you make it an option, they're always going to take the easy way out and appoint someone who's less qualified for these positions if they can. And this way, there's no easy way out. You need a CPA. If you're going to appoint a city accountant, they should be a certified public accountant if they're in charge of the taxpayer dollars. And you mentioned the homegrown CPAs, and that's really what you're trying to do here, is empower and train and teach your employees. And in fact, there was an employee here, Ann Forti-Sciarrino. She's your first deputy comptroller, and she is such a qualified individual and has worked for the city for decades, but she couldn't get her own CPA until she worked under a CPA, and now she's a CPA. Mike Schroeder is a CPA, all because of these CPAs in leadership positions, empowering and training and teaching the rank and file members.
Yeah. So going back to Ann Forti-Sciarrino, I've mentioned her name before. She is the best first deputy in the history of the city of Buffalo. And Patrick, I'm a history major, so I can name every comptroller going back, to 1847. I won't, but I can tell you she is credentialed. She does the right thing. She has integrity, and she has the respect of everybody. Now, I also, the people of Buffalo know that I'm very candid. There were times, when you're the comptroller, it's a political position. You run for office, right? You run for office, people vote for you. And in the past, comptrollers have brought in political hacks to do certain work in the comptroller's office, but it was mostly for their own advantage. That has stopped under me 5.5 years ago. I refuse to do it. I won't do it. And it's clear to everybody by now knowing that there's 10 certified public accountants in audit and control under my leadership. It's the first time in history since 1832 that's ever happened.
You even have some more CPAs than some CPA firms out there.
Yeah, we do.
Now,
we do.
We got to take a brief break, and I want to talk when we get back about the bond sale, which was led by another one of your CPAs, Investment and Debt Officer Greg Szymanski.
Perfect.
Stay tuned for more Comptroller's Corner after this message.
Are you unemployed, underemployed, or do you need to improve your job skills? Then the Buffalo Employment and Training Center is here for you. The Buffalo Employment and Training Center is your one-stop employment shop. Whether you need help with your search, access to information, seminars, or training, our expert and caring staff is here for you. And the best part is, all of our services are free. The Buffalo Employment and Training Center is conveniently located at 77 Goodell Street in downtown Buffalo with plenty of free parking. For more information, call 856-JOBS or visit us on the web at www.workforcebuffalo.org.
Hi, welcome back to Comptroller's Corner. The Comptroller entered the bond market last week to borrow funds for the city's capital projects. and he got rock bottom rates thanks to the city's good credit ratings. Now, Mark, the rate you got on the $25.5 million in capital project is 1.9. Now, anybody out there who's taken out a mortgage or a car loan recently knows that 1.9 is a really good rate, especially when you're talking about nearly $26 million.
Nobody's getting that rate in getting a house or a car, so yeah, you're right.
So that's partly due to the city's bond ratings. Now, you're in the AA category with Fitch ratings, and you're in the single A, A+, and A1 with Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Now, this has really paid dividends for the city as far as saving on some of these interest costs and making these rates really low. And the winning bid was First Tennessee Financial. Now, this is a Tennessee bank that had never, ever bid on the city's business before until 2 years ago, and they must have thought, what a great deal that they came back for more here now 2 years later. And this is a trend that the city's going into, where we're getting a lot of interest and investment from areas all over the country that previously wouldn't come near Buffalo and wouldn't come near the risk involved. But now with this credit rating so good that they're banging down the city's door to buy our bonds.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, Patrick, just a quick little review. So, over the last 5 years, we've had 3 upgrades from the rating agencies. And as you mentioned, just recently, Fitch gave us a AA-. That is the highest rating in Buffalo history. The other 2 rating agencies has us at the A+, A1. But both, through this process of going to the bond market, have given us a positive outlook, which means it's imminent. It means shortly we will be getting an upgrade just like Fitch did. And so why is that important? It's important for all the reasons you just mentioned. It gives us credibility, and also over the last 2 years, I've done what is called road shows. I've gone to places like New York City. I've gone to places like Chicago, trying to seek out new investors and tell them the Buffalo story and tell them that we have discipline on the fiscal side and that we have 10 certified public accountants working in audit and control, and that under the leadership of Greg Szymanski, a certified public accountant. And some people could say, well, why would you need a certified public accountant in debt management? Well, because, Patrick, it's common sense. It's because we already go through a process. We do an RFP, request for proposal, every 3 years to have a financial manager, a financial advisor help us. The financial advisor is adroit and very smart and understands the marketplace, knows how to work with the banks. I want to make sure I have a certified public accountant in there each and every day that is managing this and also working with the banks, the major banks that we do business with. So it becomes very, very important in terms of time management and organization to have the right credentialed people doing the right work.
A little bit about this bond sale. Now, without getting too many of the details, the spread was 0.08. Now, what that means is that even though the city was rated in the single A and double A category, we got a rate that's more in line with an entity that would have a AAA rating. So basically,
which is the highest rating you can get.
Highest rating you can get.
Prime. It's a prime rating.
So this is an example of the city. Not only are we getting good credit ratings, but we're getting these rates that are even better than the credit ratings that we have, and that's just going to save taxpayers money.
Yeah, there's no question about it, and I want to make this clear, and I've said this before. Over the last 5.5 years, I've reached out to the mayor and to his administration. I've reached out to the superintendent and to his administration, and together I make it clear that when we have these conversations with the rating agencies, that we need to do it together so that we tell the full story, and there has been full cooperation with that. And that's important because when you have certain groups like this Tennessee Bank and other investors who've never invested in Buffalo before, we want to tell the story that even though there could be political divides and there could be certain things that happen, but together we work together to do the best we can for our city and for our citizens, and this is an example of that working beautifully.
Now, you got a letter recently from the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority, and they were wondering, why don't the city have them borrow on their behalf? Years ago, the city was in rough financial shape, couldn't go to the bond market themselves. Since you've been controller, you've gone to the bond market every year, your credit ratings there's been 3 upgrades. The rates that the city's been paying has been lower and lower, and you wouldn't have got these credit rating upgrades, and you would have got these low rates if the city wasn't doing its own borrowing. Now, the city has to stand on its own and can't keep looking back to the control board for help. So you're basically saying that, why, when you take the training wheels off a bike, why, and then you bought a new bike, it's a 10-speed, why would you put training wheels back on at this point? Why would you go backwards? And why would you take the city's finances and depend on something like the control board again?
So I have a great deal of respect for the control board. And over the last 5.5 years, I and my first deputy, Ann Forti-Sciarrino, we have initiated ourselves visits to go see them, to keep the communication line going. Every time I've gone there, they've made it clear, the chair of the BFSA has made it very clear to me that they weren't interested in getting involved in doing the borrowing, that it's a role that we should play. But I understand how these things happen, and I get it. There are certain members who are on the board who are appointed either by the controller or the governor, and they're independent, they're volunteers, they're showing up each and every month, and they go through these meetings, and they ask questions like, would it be cheaper for the BFSA, the control board, to go to the bond market as opposed to the city? And so technically, maybe, but over the last 5.5 years, and based on this whole beginning of the program, we have brought in the right people. We have hired the right financial advisors. We are ready to go to the market once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, whatever the opportunity is. And as you know, and you've talked about on other shows, Patrick, we have done a lot of refundings. And you have to have the right people. And so I'm very, very comfortable. If the BFSA wants to have a debate or a conversation on the subject matter, I'm happy to have it. In fact, we are now gathering some information for them, and over the next couple of weeks we'll have a conversation with them. But it's my opinion that we're going to continue the way we have, and that I believe that we have the confidence of everybody in the city of Buffalo based on our past experience in the marketplace.
Yeah, you mentioned that experience and the refundings, that saved over $100 million in interest costs, and you've gone to the market for bond sales every year for general obligation debt and these refundings, and you're experienced in doing this, and your advisors are experienced, but the BFSA on the flip side hasn't really done any of these deals recently. They haven't gone to the marketplace, and they don't have quite the recent experience in this. And also, if they were borrowing on behalf, we would still have to have our financial advisor, our bond counsel, and then you'd have to throw in a second financial advisor for the BFSA, a second second bond counsel for the BFSA. So there'd be more consultants, and I think they use some New York City-based consultants.
More expenses.
More expenses.
So
a lot of time, and the rates that they're doing in this comparison aren't always the final rates that the city gets. So if they can say they can save us money, it might not be as much money as they're saying, and maybe there's some other places that they can help the city save some money, even more money than the negligible amount that they could by borrowing on our behalf.
But it's a process, and I understand, and we will go through the process, and we will sit with them, we will give them all the information, and at the end of the day, I always remain open, because I want to do the best thing for the city of Buffalo, and that's one of the reasons why I believe I was an effective legislator in the New York State Assembly, because I made my own decisions. I didn't go along with what the party wanted me to do. I listened, and then I made my own decision on behalf of the constituents that I represent, and I will continue to do the same thing as the Buffalo City Comptroller.
Now, one project that is not going to get funded by the city's capital budget is a new train station for the Central Terminal. Now, you're very disappointed not only in the decision to put the train station downtown rather than the Central Terminal, but also the process. You were there for the final meeting with the vote, and there were barricades out in the street, and there were police officers blocking the entrance. You couldn't even attend the meeting as a city controller. That's not quite a transparent public process as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, no, it was very disappointing, and I really feel bad for the citizens of Buffalo. And Patrick, this wasn't an East Side issue. I understand that the central terminal in that area would be most beneficial to the East Side neighborhoods. But I go everywhere. I go across the city. I'm elected citywide, so I go everywhere. This was a North Buffalo, South Buffalo, East Buffalo, West Buffalo issue. People wanted it there. Congressman Brian Higgins was clear that day when he had a press conference before he went in to vote for the central terminal, and he was taken aback by the barricades right there in front of him. He was taken aback that the press. It's the first time I can remember. I've been an elected official since 2002 now. I don't ever remember the press not being allowed to go into a meeting that has to do with public money. It was just misguided. And what really bothered me most of all is that the whole thing was rigged. They made a decision in the beginning. They knew 6 months ago that they wanted to have this downtown. So why put people through this? Why make people go to public hearings and voice their opinion and also write testimony to why they want something if you're not going to listen to them in the first place? Don't do it. People in Buffalo, we're all grown-ups. Just say that the governor has provided some opportunity for funding, and we've decided that we're going to do this south of Exchange Street on the fringe of Canal Side, and that's the decision we made. But to go through this charade and to let people really think that the central terminal had a chance for this, I think was misguided. And then here we go again. It's the same thing again. Well, let's throw them a little bone now. As if the East Side and the central terminal now is a charity case. Okay, we didn't put the central terminal, the Amtrak station there, but we'll do something for you. It's insulting. It really is.
Yeah, it seems like they think the council chambers was available, and that's a place they could hold all the board members and as many people from the public or the media could attend it. And certainly they could have had access to that room if they really wanted to hold a public meeting. But.
Well, you know what? Listen, again, let me just be clear about this. When the mayor does his State of the City event, it is in the Buffalo Convention Center, and everybody is welcomed, including all of the media. But when politicians want to do what they want to do, but they want to make it seem like they really care about what the public wants, this is where people are too smart for it, and I think they're disappointed, and I am. I'm very disappointed with the process. I can take a decision. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I can take it, but to do the way they did this, I think was unfortunate, and they were misguided.
Now, speaking of the Central Terminal, there's a big party that's in there and around there every Easter Monday. It's called Dyngus Day. You were there. Now, we only have a minute left, so please be quick, but it was a great event.
It's a great event, and I'll tell you something, Patrick. A lot of times it has to do with weather. Last year it was so freezing cold, and it was kind of like a ghost town out there, not a lot of people. This year, it was beautiful. The weather was glorious. And this is an opportunity for a lot of the organizations, the Adam Mickiewicz Library, St. Stan's, Corpus Christi, the Central Terminal. It gives them an opportunity to have a party, Dyngus Day, which is a Polish tradition. And then people come in and they make money, and then the money is used to foster tradition. The Polish language, Polish dancing, and so the Polish, the way of doing things from the old Polonia days. It was wonderful and fabulous, and the parade was so great. I marched in a parade in the group called the Kielbasa, and we just had a lot of fun, and it was really a great day for all of Buffalo.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's Controller's Corner.
Thanks, Patrick.
Hope to see you next time, and thanks for joining us at home. Make sure to check out our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, our Twitter handle, and, of course, the City Controller's website at www.city-buffalo.com/controller. That's all the time we have for Controller's Corner. Thanks for joining us. This is Pat Curry on behalf of Mark Schroeder, signing off.